Young Robin Hood by George Fenn. Chapter 5. "As far as you like, Robin," said the outlaw, "only you must be wise. Don't go far enough to lose your way. Learn the forest by degrees. Some day you will not be able to lose yourself."
"But suppose I did lose myself," said the boy, "what then?"
"I should have to tell Little John to bring all my merry men to look for you, and Maid Marian here would sit at home and cry till you were found."
"Then I will not lose myself," said Robin, and he always remembered his promise when he took his bow and arrows and, with his sword hanging from his belt, went away from the outlaws' camp for a long ramble. His bow was just as high as he was himself, that being the rule in archery, and his arrows, beautifully made by Little John, were just half the length of his bow. As to his sword, that was a dagger in a green shark-skin sheath given to him by Robin Hood, who said rightly enough that it was quite big enough for him. Maid Marian found a suitable buckle for the belt, one which Little John cut out of a very soft piece of deer-skin, the same skin forming the cross-belt which went over the boy's shoulder and supported his horn. For he was supplied with a horn as well, this being necessary in the forest, and Robin Hood himself taught him in the evenings how to blow the calls by fitting his lips to the mouthpiece and altering the tone by placing his hand inside the silver rim which formed the mouth. It was not easy, but the little fellow soon learned. All the same, though he made some strange sounds at first, bad enough, Little John declared, to give one of Maid Marian's cows the toothache and frighten the herds of deer farther and farther away. That was only at the first, for young Robin very soon became quite a woodman, learning fast to sound his horn, to shoot and hit his mark, and to find his way through the great wilderness of open moorland and shady trees. But it was more than once that he lost his way, for the trees and beaten tracks were so much alike and all was so beautiful, that it was easy to wander on and forget all about finding the way back through the sun-dappled shades. And so it happened that one morning when the outlaw band had gone off hunting, to bring back a couple of fat deer for Robin Hood's larder, young Robin started by himself, bow in hand, down one of the lovely beech glades, and had soon gone farther than he had been before. The squirrels dropped the beech mast and dashed away through the trees, to chop and scold at him. The rabbits started from out the ferns, and raced away fast, showing the under part of their white cotton tails, before they plunged into their shady burrows; and twice over, as the boy softly passed out of the shade into some sunny opening, he came upon little groups of deer, beautiful large-eyed thin-legged does with their fawns, grazing peacefully on the soft grass which grew in patches between the tufts of golden prickly furze, for they were safe enough, the huntsmen being gone in search of the lordly bucks, with their tall flattened horns if they were fallow deer, small, round, and sharply pointed if they were roes. There was always something fresh to see, and he who went slowly and softly through the forest saw most. At such times as this young Robin would stop short to watch the grazing deer and fawns with their soft dappled hides, till all at once a pair of sharp blue eyes would spy him out, and the jay who owned those eyes would set up his soft speckled crest, show his fierce black mustachios, and shout an alarm again in a harsh voice: "Here's a boy! Here's a boy!" And the does would leave off eating, throw up their heads, and away the little herd would go, nip, 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 in a series of bounds, just as if their thin legs were so many springs, their black hoofs coming down close together, and just touching the short elastic grass, which seemed to send them off again. "I wish they wouldn't be afraid of me," young Robin said. "I shouldn't hurt them." But the does and fawns did not know that, for as Robin said this he was fitting an arrow to his bowstring, and threatening to send it flying after the shrieking jay who had given the alarm. He forgot, too, that he had eaten heartily of delicious roasted fawn only a few days before. As he wandered on through the glades, where the sun seemed to send rays of glowing silver down through the oak or beech leaves as if to fill the golden cups which grew beneath them, among the soft green moss, he would come out suddenly perhaps on one of the sunny forest pools, perhaps where the water was half covered with broad flat leaves, among which were silver blossoms, in other places golden, with arrow-weed at the sides, along with whispering reeds and sword-shaped iris plants. There beneath the floating leaves great golden-sided carp and tench followed, and sometimes a fierce-eyed green-splashed pike, while over all flitted and darted upon gauzy wings beautiful dragon-flies chasing the tiny gnats, blue, brown, golden, and golden-green, and now and then encountering and making their wings rustle as they touched in rapid flight. Then, as he stood with his hand resting against a tree trunk, peering forward, a curious little head with bright crimson eyes divided the sedge or reeds growing in the water, its owner looking out to see if there was any danger. And as it looked, Robin could see that the bird's beak seemed to be continued right up into a fired red place between its eyes. Then it came sailing out, swimming by means of its long thin legs and toes, coming right into the opening, looking of a dark shiny brownish green, all but its stunted tail, the underpart of which was pure white, with a black band across. Little John told him afterwards that it was a moor-hen, even if it was a cock-bird. It was, not this which took so much of Robin's attention, but the 7 or 8 little dark balls which followed it out along one of their lanes of open water, swimming here and there and making dabs with their little beaks at the insects gliding about the top. It was so quiet and seemed so safe that, directly after, the reeds parted again, and another bird swam out from among the sheltering reeds. Robin knew this directly as a drake, but he had never before seen one with such a gloriously green head, rich chestnut-colored breast, soft grey back, or glistening metallic purple wing spots. Robin could have sent a sharp pointed arrow at this beautiful bird, and perhaps have killed it, for he knew well the roast duck or drake is very nice stuffed with sage and onions, and with green peas to eat therewith. But he never thought of using his bow, and he was content to feast his eyes upon the bird's beauty and watch its motions. The drake took no notice of the moor-hen and her dusky dabs, but swam right out in the middle, seemed to stand up on the water, stretching out his neck and flapping his wings so sharply that something right on the other side moved suddenly, and Robin saw that there was another bird which he had not seen before, a long-necked, long-legged, loose-feathered grey creature with sharp eyes and a thin beak, standing in the water and staring eagerly at the drake as much as to say, "What is the matter there?" while he uttered aloud the one inquiring cry, "Quack?" "Quack, quack, quack," said the drake. "Quack, quack, quack, quack," came from out of the reeds, and a brown duck came sailing out, followed by 10 little yellow balls of down with flat beaks, swimming like their mother, but in a hurried pop-and-go-on fashion, in and round, and seeming to go through country dances in the water, in chase of water beetles and running spiders or flies, while the duck kept on uttering a warning quack, and the drake, who, first with one eye and then with the other, kept a sharp look up in the sky for falcons and hawks, now and then muttered out a satisfied "Work, work, work." Robin had just thinking how beautiful it all was, when the danger for which the drake was watching in the sky suddenly came from the water beneath. One of the downy yellow dabs had swum 2 yards away from the others and his mother, after a daddy-long legs which had flown down onto the surface of the water and had opened its little flat beak to seize it, when there was a whirl in the water, a rush and splash, and 2 great jaws armed with sharp teeth closed over the duckling, which was visible one moment, gone the next, and Robin drew an arrow out to fit his bowstring. But he was too late to send it whizzing at the great pike, which had given a whisk with its tail and gone off to some lair in the reeds to peacefully swallow the young duck, while the rest followed their quacking father and mother back to the shelter of the reeds, rushes, and sedge, where the moor-hen and her brood were already safe, while, startled by the alarm, the heron bent down, as it spread its great grey wings, sprang up, gave a few flaps and flops, and began to sail round above the pool till it grew peaceful again, when, stretching out its legs, the heron dropped back into the water, stood motionless gazing down with meditative eyes as if quite satisfied that no fish would touch it, and then flick! It had taken place so rapidly that Robin hardly saw the movement, but certainly the heron's beak was darted in amongst the bottoms of the reeds, where they grew out of the water, and directly afterwards the bird straightened itself again, to stand up with a kicking green frog in its scissor-shaped beak. Then there was a jerk or two, which altered the frog's position, and the beak from being only a little way open, was shut quite close, and a knob appeared in the heron's long neck, went slowly lower and lower, and then disappeared altogether. Then the heron shuffled its wings a little, as if to put the feathers quite straight, said "Think!" loudly twice over, and shut one eye. For the bird had partaken of a satisfactory dinner, and was thinking about it, while young Robin sighed and thought it seemed very dreadful. But the next moment he was watching a streak of blue, which was a kingfisher with a tiny silver fish in its beak, and thinking he was beginning to feel hungry himself. So he left the side of the pool with another sigh, the noise he made sending off the great grey heron, and after a little difficulty he found his way back to the outlaw's camp and his own dinner, which, oddly enough, was not roast buck or fawn, but roast ducks and a fine baked pie, cooked in an earthen oven, with plenty of stuffing. Then, being hungry, young Robin partook of his own meal, and forgot all about what he had seen. End of chapter 5. Young Robin Hood by George Fenn. Chapter 6. It was all very wonderful to young Robin when he saw Little John or one of the other men let fly an arrow with a twang of the bowstring and a sharp whiz of the wings through the air, to quiver in a mark 80 or 100 yards away, or to pierce some flying wild goose or duck passing in a flock high in air. But by degrees that which had seemed so marvellous soon ceased to astonish him, and at last looked quite easy. For Robin was delighted with his bow and arrows as soon as he found that he could send one of the light-winged shaft whistling in a beautiful curve to stick in some big tree. Then he began shooting at smaller trees, and then at saplings when he could hit the small trees. But the saplings were, of course, much more difficult. One day, though, he went back to Little John in triumph, to tell him that he had shot at a young oak about as thick as his wrist. "But you didn't hit it?" said the big fellow, smiling. "I just scratched one side of it, though," cried the boy. "Did you now? Well done. You keep on trying, and you'll beat me some day." "I don't think I shall," said Robin, shaking his head thoughtfully. "Oh, but you will if you keep on trying. A lad who tries hard can do nearly anything." "Can he?" said Robin. "To be sure he can. So you try, and when you can hit anything you shoot at, you'll be half a man. And when you've done growing, you'll be one quite." "Shall I ever be as big as you?" asked Robin. "I hope not," said Little John, laughing. "I'm too big." "Are you?" said Robin. "I should like to be as big as you." "No, no, don't," cried Little John. "You go on growing till you're a 6-footer, and then you stop. All that grows after that's a waste of good stuff, and gets in your way. Big ones like me are always knocking their heads against something." "But how am I to know when I'm 6 feet high?" said Robin. "Oh, I'll tell you. I'll keep measuring you, my lad." "And how am I to stop growing?" Little John took off his cap and scratched his head, as he wrinkled up his big good-humoured face. "Well, I don't quite know," he said, "but there's plenty of time yet, and we shall see. Might put a big stone in your hat, or keep you in a very dry place, or tie your shoulders down to your waist. No, that wouldn't do." "Why?" said Robin promptly. "Because it wouldn't stop your legs growing, and it's boys' legs that grow the most when they're young. I say, though, what's become of all those arrows I made you?" "Shot them away." "And only 2 left. You mustn't waste arrows like that.
Why didn't you look for them after you shot?"
"I did," cried Robin, "but they will hide themselves so. They creep right under the grass and among the weeds so that you can't find them again. But you'll make me some more, won't you?"
"Well," said Little John, "I suppose I must. But you will have to be more careful, young un. I can't spend all my time making new arrows for you. But there, I want you to shoot so that the captain will be proud of you, and some day you'll have to shoot a deer."
"I don't think I should like to shoot a deer," said the boy, shaking his head.
"Why not? They're good to eat."
"They look so nice and kind, with their big soft eyes."
"Well, a man then."
"Oh, no, I shouldn't like to shoot a man."
"What, not one of the captain's enemies who had come to kill him?"
"I don't think I should mind so much then. Look here, Little John, I'd shoot an arrow into his back, to prick him and make him run away."
"And so you shall, my lad," cried Little John, and he set to work directly to cut some wood for arrows to refill the boy's quiver, and when those were lost, he made some more, for young Robin was always shooting and losing them. But Little John said it did not matter, for he was going to be a famous marksman, and the big fellow looked as proud of his pupil as could be. But Little John did not stop at teaching young Robin to shoot, for one day the boy found him smoothing and scraping a nice new piece of ash as thick as his little finger, which was not little at all. "You don't know what this is for?" said the big fellow.
"It looks like a little quarterstaff," said young Robin, "like all the men have."
"Well done. Guessed it first time. Now guess who it is for."
"Me," said the boy promptly. And so it was, and what was more, Little John, in the days which followed, taught him how to handle it so as to give blows and guard himself, till the little fellow became as clever and active as could be, making the men roar with laughter when in a bout he managed to strike so quickly that his staff struck leg or arm before his opponent could guard.
"Why, you're getting quite a forester, Robin," said the captain, smiling, "and what with your skill with bow and quarterstaff you'll soon be able to hold your own." Robin Hood's words were put to the proof in autumn, for one day when the acorns had swollen to such a size that they could no longer sit in their cups, and came rattling down from the sunny side of the great oak trees, young Robin was having a glorious ramble. He had filled his satchel with brown hazelnuts, and had a good feast of blackberries, and strained his fingers. He had had a long talk to a tame fawn which knew him and came when he whistled, and tempted a couple of squirrels down with some very brown nuts, laying them upon the bark of a fallen tree, and then drawing back a few yards, with the result that the bushy-haired little animals crept softly down, nearer and nearer, ending by making a rush, seizing the nuts, and darting back to the security of a high branch of a tree.
"I shouldn't hurt you," said Robin, as he stood leaning upon his little quarterstaff, watching them nibble away the ends of the nuts, to get at the sweet kernel. "If I wanted to I could unsling my bow, string it, and bring you down with an arrow, but I don't want to. Why can't you both be as tame as my fawn?" The squirrels made no answer, but went on nibbling the nuts, and suddenly darted up higher in the tree, while Robin grew so much interested in the movements of the active little creatures that he heard no sound behind him, nor did he awaken to the fact that he was being stalked by some one creeping barefooted from tree to tree to get within springing distance, till all at once he felt the whole weight of something alighting on his back, and driving him forward so that he dropped his quarterstaff and came down on hands and knees.
"Got you, have I at last?" cried a familiar voice, as he felt his ribs nipped, his assailant having seated himself on his back. "Didn't I tell you I'd wait, and you was to bring me back a lot to eat?" Young Robin waited for no more, but in his agony of spirit he gave himself a wrench sidewise, dislodging his rider, and made an effort to struggle up again. But his old enemy held fast, and after a sharp struggle Robin stood panting, face to face with the young swineherd, who had him tightly by the doublet with both hands. "You let go!" cried young Robin fiercely. "You'll tear my coat." "I means to tear it right off directly," said the boy, grinning. "I want a new one again, and it'll just do. I'm a-going to have 'em bow and arrows too, and a knife and cap. I'll let you see. Going and hiding away all this time when I told you to come back." "You let me go," panted Robin, looking vainly round for help. "Nay, there aren't no one a night, and I've got you fast.
Why didn't you come back as I told you?" "I didn't want to," said Robin angrily. "You let me go. I'll call Little John to you." "Call him, and I'll knock his ugly eye out," cried the boy. "I don't care for no Little Johns. I've got you now, and I'm going to pay you for not coming back before. And I know," he snarled, "you're a thief. That's what you are." "I'm not!" cried Robin fiercely, and he made a desperate struggle to get away to where his little quarterstaff lay hidden amongst the bracken. "You let me go!" But his efforts to get free were vain. "Yes, I'll let you go, p'raps, when I've done with you and got all I wants," said the boy in a husky, satisfied tone, as he seemed to gloat over his victim. "No, I won't. You're a thief and a deer stealer, and I shall just take you to one of the king's keepers." Young Robin set his teeth and made another struggle, but quite in vain, for he was no match in strength for his adversary. "What? Hold still! Well, I'll kick you. Quiet, will ya?" snarled the boy. "If you don't leave off, I'll drag you through all the worst brambles and pitch you to my tigs. Do you hear?" he shouted. Robin paused breathlessly, and stood gazing wildly at his enemy. "You thought I was giving you up, did you? But I wasn't. I've been watching for you ever since you ran away, and knowed I should catch you some day. Ah, you young thief!" He tightened his grip of Robin's shoulders, grinned at him like an angry dog, and gave him a fierce shake, while his victim breathed hard as he pressed his teeth together, and there was a look in his eyes as if he was some newly captured wild creature seeking a way to escape. "Come along," snarled the young swineherd. "I dropped my staff just back there, and as soon as I gets it I'm going to stand over here while you strips off all your things, and if you tries to get away I'll break your leg, and you can't run then." Robin drew a breath which sounded like a deep sigh, and ceased his struggling, letting his enemy force him to walk backward among the bracken and nearly fall again and again, till all at once the savage young lout shouted, "Ah, here it is!" and loosening one hand, he was in the act of stooping to pick up the staff he had dropped in leaping upon his victim, who now made a bound which sent the boy face downward on to his staff, while Robin dashed off to where his own quarterstaff lay among the bracken, a spot he had glanced at again and again. He seized it in an instant and was about to bound away among the trees, but his enemy had recovered himself, and staff in hand, came after him at so terrible a rate that Robin only avoided a swishing blow at his legs by dodging round a tree, which received the stroke. The next moment Robin faced round in the open beyond the tree, and stood on guard as he had been taught. "Ah, would ya?" snarled the young swineherd. "Take that then." Whisk went the staff, and then crack as it was received by Robin across his own, and then, profiting by Little John's lessons, he brought his own over from the left and delivered a sounding blow on his assailant's head. The swineherd uttered a savage yell as he staggered back, but came fiercely on again, striking with all his might, but so wildly that Robin easily avoided the blow, and brought his own staff down, whack, crash on his enemy's shoulders, producing a couple more yells of pain. From that moment Robin had it all his own way, for he easily guarded himself from the swineherd's fierce strokes and retorted with swinging blows on first one arm, then on the other. Then he brought his staff down with a blow beside his enemy's left leg, then half behind the right, making him dance and limp as he yelled and sought in vain to beat down his active little adversary, who delivered a shower of cleverly directed blows in response to the wild swoops given with the worst of aim. In the heat and excitement Robin had felt no fear. He was in his mettle, and fighting for liberty, to gain which he felt that he must effectually beat his enemy, and thanks to Little John's lessons, he thrashed him so well that at the end of 5 minutes the young swineherd received a final stroke across the knuckles which made him shriek, drop his staff, and turn to run down a long straight avenue in the forest, where the ground was open. Robin, in his excitement, began to run after him to continue the beating, but the swineherd went too fast, and on the impulse of the moment the victor stopped short, dropping his own staff and unslinging his bow from where it hung. In less time than it takes to tell the bow was strung and an arrow fitted, drawn to the head, and with a twang it was loosed after the flying lad, now 100 yards away. But as soon as it was shot Robin repented. "It will kill him," he thought, and his heart seemed to stand still. For the boy's teacher had taught well, and here was the proof. Truly, as if a long careful aim had been taken, the arrow sped many times faster than the swineherd ran, and Robin's eyes dilated as he saw his adversary give a sudden spring and fall upon his face, uttering a hideous yell. Robin, full of repentance, started off to his enemy's help, but before he had gone many yards, the swineherd sprang up and began to run faster than ever, while when Robin reached the spot, there lay his arrow, but the lad was gone. "Only pricked him a bit," said Little John when he heard of the adventure. "Served the young wretch right. But a quarter-staff! My word, big one, and I'd given something to have been there to hear his bones rattle. Well, I didn't teach you for naught, but look here, if you meet that fellow in the forest again, don't you wait for him to begin. You go at him at once." Robin nodded his head, but he never saw the swineherd again. End of chapter 6.